Welcome to Lecture 2 of CSCI100, Intro to Computer Science. Last class, we talked through the logistics for the course and then actually started our computer science material talking about what language computers speak. We talked about binary. But today, we're going to start off our class talking a bit about what languages we as programmers speak and use. But before we do that, I want to take just a quick minute to talk about the Google STEP internship. The STEP internship is Google's freshman and sophomore paid internship program. And if you're a freshman taking this class, I promise you, you'll be 100% ready to interview this year. So the way it works is the program assumes you've only taken one computer science class, a class just like this one. And you apply in mid-September, and then your interviews will be scheduled sometime early next semester. So you'll interview once you've already finished the class. And I want to take this moment to really encourage you to apply. I applied my freshman year, and that's actually how I got into Google. I got this STEP internship, I got a return offer for an internship, and then I got a return offer to come back full-time. So if you can, right now, pause the video and take a minute to fill out this quick form to get connected with Howard Google Recruiters. So you can type it in your browser, shortle.io/google-interest-form. It'll just ask you for your name and what year you are, and a couple other small details. It'll just take a minute. This is, of course, completely optional. It's not part of the course, but I highly encourage you to fill it out because getting a chance to have an internship at Google or at any company, you learn a lot, and you'll come back more prepared for your future CS classes, and it'll just be a great start to your career. So take a minute and go ahead and fill that out if you'd like to. Okay, and now we'll go on. So, getting back to languages, let's talk a little bit about what programming actually is. So, programming is really designing and writing code to accomplish some task. And I know this is very broad, but some examples of tasks we might be trying to solve, they could be small and simple tasks, like maybe you want to make a calculator. Maybe you want to calculate compound interest. So if you put $100 in the bank today, how much will it be worth 10 years from now if the interest is some certain amount? Other simple tasks you could want to do are show an image on a screen, or maybe move a robot, have a robot move its arm in a certain way. You can also program software to do bigger tasks. For example, you could want to make something that lets you browse videos on YouTube, like the YouTube app. It has to have a subscriptions feed, it has to have a player for you to actually be able to watch videos and pause them and comment on videos. And so that's pretty complicated. You could want to build a website for your class, just like CSCI100.org. It's not a super complicated task, but it's broader than just a single calculation. Or you could be trying to come up with an interesting algorithm to solve some algorithmic problem you have. For example, navigating from Howard's campus to the White House, what's the fastest route for you to take? This is what Google Maps thinks about. And you can solve this problem using many different languages, and there's lots out there. Python, Scratch, Java, C, C++. You may have heard of some of these: JavaScript, Go, R, Swift. Now, don't be overwhelmed because there's lots of different languages out there in the real world too that humans speak. This is similar to saying, some people speak French, others speak Mandarin, some people speak German, some people speak Afrikaans, some people speak English. It's the same way here. But what's important to know is that last time we saw the language that the actual hardware understands, which is binary, ones and zeros. And so all of these different languages, they differ a little bit. You can see here the Python, a line from Python, a line from Java, and a line from C++. They look kind of similar, but they differ. They have their own rules. But they all go through their own language's compiler, and that compiler eventually spits out some machine language binary that you can assume is the same across those different languages. So you can use any language to do any task, but some languages are better suited for some tasks. And in this class, we're going to focus specifically on Python. So we're learning the language Python. Why are we learning the language Python, though, if there are so many different languages? It is the perfect language to start coding in. Compared to other languages, it's fairly easy to read. It might still seem a bit alien to you right now, but it'll get clear in the next few weeks as we learn the language. There's very little syntax, and syntax might be a new word for you. Syntax means the rules of grammar in a programming language. And finally, it's actually used quite a bit in the real world, so including for interviews, and so it'll be a very useful language for you to know. Some examples are YouTube. All of YouTube up until about 2 years ago was built using using Python. Walt Disney and other animation studios use Python for animation. And for the people in this class who were saying that you're interested in making video games, well, Python has been used to make major video games like Battlefield 2. Let's take a brief detour before we get into the exciting part of writing our first Python program to talk a little bit about learning theory and how it relates to the material you're learning in this class. I want you to think about these two words, concept versus syntax. So there's an apple on the screen. One person comes in and points at the apple and says, apple. Another person comes in and points at the apple and says manzana. Maybe the first person who came in, maybe they're from the United States, maybe they're from England. The second person, perhaps from Spain or Mexico, they're speaking Spanish, but they're pointing to the same thing. And so this apple is some concept. It's some thing, and the words that different people use for that same thing are syntax. And the syntax differs a bit, differs a lot from language to language. But the important thing to understand is the difference between the actual concept, which is an apple, and the way that you express that concept in some particular language, which is the syntax. And so in this class, there are going to be two kinds of learning that you're likely to come across. One is going to be where we learn something where you already know the concept. You already know what an apple is in English, but you're going to be learning new syntax. So like a new word in a different language for something that you already know, like manzana, if you didn't know that apple is manzana in Spanish. On the other hand, we'll have a second type of learning that'll happen where you'll see something that is both a new concept and new syntax. So for example, if I showed you that picture there, I don't know how many of you know this, but that is I think that's either an octopus or something in that family, but it's called a cephalopod. And so here, not only do you not know the word cefalópodo in Spanish, but you also don't know the concept. So both of them are new. And maybe to make this more concrete, the type one of learning is, for example, math operators. You're familiar with addition and subtraction and multiplication. You're probably familiar with variables from algebra classes. You had y equals mx plus b. You're potentially familiar with the concept of lists, or just like multiple things on a list, like on a shopping list. But you'll see some new things that you'll both have to learn the syntax for in Python, but also the whole concept of a function, of recursion, of control flows, of memory, computer memory. And so I want to encourage you to keep this difference in your mind as you're going through the class. And make sure that when you first learn the thing, you're going to be learning them together. You're going to be learning the new concept and the syntax for that concept together. But as you practice it and apply it, try to understand the difference between just the way you do this in Python versus the idea itself. Because as you go on to take more classes or work in the field or do internships, you'll be asked to apply these concepts in new languages. And it helps if you can think about the syntax separately from the concept.